Hi, I'm Yvonne and welcome to the RV Cooking Show, a place where we can share our passion for RVing and our love for recreating regional food specialties right here in my RV kitchen. In this episode of Food, Fun, and Friends at Flying Flags called Local and Luscious, I'm going to introduce you to two Santa Ynez Valley oil barons. First, we'll talk to Theo Steffen from Global Gardens. We'll meet her at her olive groves in Los Alamos, and we'll learn a little bit about olive oil. When we return to our RV kitchen, I'll show you how to make a simple, delicious, and elegant baked goat cheese salad. After that, we'll visit with Mary Jane Edelapour at her walnut grove, and we'll talk a little bit about La Nogalera walnut oil. After we talk to Mary Jane, we'll come back to the RV kitchen and we will make a sinfully delicious dessert using walnut oil. It's going to be great. I can't wait to get started. Let's head over to Theo's. I think you're going to like it. Let's go.
The trees behind us were actually here on the property, and they're about 60 years old. They're Farga trees, and this varietal originated in Spain. The rest of the olive trees on the property, we imported about 500 trees from the island of Crete called Koroneiki. Wow. And then Mission and Manzanilla olives, which are pretty indigenous to the California region. We knew that they would do well here. The other ones were kind of a risk, but they're doing well also. What happens is right now the blossoms are fairly tight. Some of them are just opening. It's an airborne pollination. We don't require bees to pollinate olive trees, and so if we have a lot of wind, unfortunately that pollination blows away. So what happens next is we'll see very tiny little BBs on the tree. That will be fruit set, and the wind doesn't really affect the little BBs or when the fruit sets. They're pretty hardy. Anytime between mid-November and mid-January is when we'll harvest. We try to harvest by varietal.
And so what do you go out to the trees and look for the olives to be ripe and then pick them, or do you just do one big harvest for each variety?
That's a great question. Each varietal, I've been doing this now since 1997, so wow. I have grown to be it's very much like making wine. Certain olives make better oil to me when they're black versus being green versus being purple. When you see brown olives in a jar, those are purple olives that when they've been processed turn brown. So we pick olives when they're green, we pick olives when they're purple, and we pick olives when they're black. And sometimes, like the Farga trees, will trick us, and those are pretty much a third, and a third. We'll bring in about 40 guys, hand harvest. We start at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's very foggy here, usually at 6 o'clock in the morning. The trees are dripping with water, and we'll harvest everything by hand. We use little combs to literally comb out the branches themselves. The fruit will fall onto tarps. Everything goes into half-ton bins. Within 24 hours, we're on the mill.
Really? That quick?
That's right, yeah. We
Wow.
don't want the acidity level to rise in the fruit. And if we were to wait, the fruit would literally start to rot. And, if you ever pick corn and eat it right as soon as you pick it, the sugars are up in the fruit. Consequently, the same thing happens with anything you pick out of any garden or off of any tree. If you can eat it right away or process it right away, you'll get all that natural flavor and sweetness. And I tend to think that our oils are a lot fruitier than a lot of other California olive oils I taste for a lot of reasons. Harvest style, pressing style, when we harvest, and just every little step of the way. We do some things a little bit different than a lot of other olive oil producers.
And do you press the olives more than once? Do you get several presses from them? How does that work?
No, we don't. We're extra virgin first cold pressing olive oil, which means that it's less than 1% acidic. And you can tell if an olive oil is extra virgin or not. It should have some kind of fruity smell. It should have either a peppery or an herbaceous finish to it. It should have flavor. So many people come and taste our oils and say, oh my, I've never had olive oil that tasted like this. It's just like anything else. When you go to the farmer's market and you buy a fresh apple versus one that has been picked when it's not quite ready yet and trucked across country, there's always a difference when you're buying direct from the producer, I think, in any food category.
That was really fun. On our way back from Theo's Olive Groves, we stopped at her tasting room, the Global Gardens tasting room in Los Olivos, and tried all sorts of olive oils and fruit vinegars. It was delicious. I picked up this delicious olive oil. It's fruity and spicy and fragrant. We're going to use this today in our baked goat cheese salad. And it's simple as can be. So let me show you how we're going to do it. We'll get started. I've got 4 medallions of goat cheese. I just took these out of the refrigerator. They're cool. They're about 1/4 inch thick. My toaster oven is preheating on 450 degrees. So here we go. Beautiful goat cheese medallion. Brush it with some walnut oil. Yummy. Put it in a little bit of plain breadcrumbs that's been seasoned with some yummy, delicious spice. Italian seasoning, garden blend. That all works great. You want to put these about 1/2 inch apart. Perfect. We're going to put these in our toaster oven. They're going to get delicious and crisp and brown. We're going to cook them for about 7 to 8 minutes. While our goat cheese is baking, we're going to make a simple and delicious vinaigrette. I'm also going to add a little bit of this garden blend right into it. Shake, shake, shake. I've got some fresh greens. I picked these up at the Solvang Farmers Market. Absolutely fabulous. That's a great farmers market. And I'm just going to give them kind of a rough chop. To this I'm going to add about a handful of walnuts. Right on the top, just to taste like so. And some delicious dried figs, some California dried figs that I picked up at El Rancho Marketplace. Yummy. And a perfect match for goat cheese. Our goat cheese medallions are ready. They're brown and toasty and soft and ooey gooey. So we'll take them out, we'll let them cool for a second or two, then we'll add them to our salad and dress it. When we finish our salad, we'll stop by the walnut groves, visit with Mary Jane Edelapour, learn about walnut oil, then we'll come back and make a sensational dessert. I can't wait. I think you're going to love this one.
The orchard that you see behind me is just starting to leaf out. And those trees, unlike the ones off to the left, which are not leafing out, are a different variety, but they're mostly pane. It's an older variety, no longer planted as I understand it. And they're more of an heirloom walnut. The taste is a bit stronger. The trees that you see now are just coming into leaf, and the catkins, the male flowers, are about 3 or 4 inches long, and they pollinate the female flowers, which are at the end of the branches, which are practically invisible. Then the nuts will be growing all summer long, and during the summer we will fertilize. We'll irrigate about 4 or 5 times depending on the weather, and we'll fertilize. We are all organic, so we fertilize with an organic fish emulsion. Then the harvest preparation begins in August, where we mow the orchard. We keep the earth flat, so when the trees are shaken and the harvest begins in October, there's a smooth surface that we can pick them up from, the walnuts.
The trees are shaken?
The trees are shaken by a mechanized bit of equipment called a shaker. And it looks like a little car with a long arm, a long claw-like arm in front, and grabs the trunk of the tree, or big branches. You might shake it 2 or 3 times. But the driver has to know he can't just go over and shake the devil out of the tree. It has to be a calculated short blast of energy, because the tree suffers somewhat from it. So after that's done, then the machinery comes through, sweeps them into rows, and then they're picked up. After they've been shaken and loaded on trucks, they're taken to a facility down 10 miles down the road, where they're washed and picked through by hand, and then they're dried overnight in a big facility at about 104 degrees. So there's a constant flow of warm air going through the walnuts that dehydrates them. It's called a dehydrator, by the way. And then they're trucked to a facility where some of them we change our strategy every year, but some of the nuts are pulled aside for oil making. And at that point, they're sent to be cracked. And when they're cracked, they have to be completely clean. There can't be any residue left whatsoever. And after that, the nuts that have been selected for the oil are sent to our oil maker. And he then roasts the nuts. And it imparts that nice toasty flavor that they have. And then the nuts are then put through an expeller press and then filtered, and it's extracted, and they're canned or bottled immediately. My 2 partners and I decided that we didn't want any refined oil, which is very common in walnut oil. You'll find that oil has been either chemically or treated by heat to purify it so it doesn't get rancid. And what you're left with is just you're left with a clear oil with virtually no flavor, and it's often topped with toasted oil or something with a flavor. So you just add a little bit of, it's like making a lemonade with a little bit of lemon juice. Or
tricky.
Yeah, it's done commonly. I can't think of any real limitations to the walnut oil. It's just that in this country, people haven't been exposed until fairly recently. And I think the limitations are only just that, lack of exposure. But I find the taste goes well with practically anything.
Boy, Mary Jane was great. And walnut oil, who knew? As she and I talked about the different ways that she uses walnut oil, my ears really perked up when she talked about a dessert. And here's what it is. I've got a chocolate fudge brownie, and I just made this from a box mix. It called for a 1/3 cup of oil. Half of it I used canola oil, the other half I filled up with walnut oil. What we're going to do is we're going to use La Nogalera walnut oil, a little bit of honey, and we're going to toast up some walnuts. We're going to put a big scoop of vanilla ice cream on the top of the brownie, the beautiful walnut honey sauce, a little bit of culinary lavender from Andre Lavender Farm, and it will be bliss. So let's get started. If you've never toasted nuts before, it is super, super simple. You're going to start out with a dry pan. I'm just going to make enough for 2. So I'm going to use this small little pan. I'm just going to put my nuts right in the dry pan. Like that. Simple. Set it on the heat. Should only take a minute to a minute and a half. Soon I'll start smelling the toasted walnuts. I'm going to shake them around. It's going to be good. Be careful. Don't let them burn. I'm going to add equal parts walnut oil and honey. And if I use my walnut oil first, I'm going to put 2 tablespoons in. It'll make my spoon measure nice and slick, so my honey will just slip off. Oh yeah. Perfect. Put it right in like that. I'm going to stir this around. Just because it's fun and it's going to add a little bit of color, I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of lavender, culinary lavender, from Andre Lavender Farms right over the top. Absolutely simple and elegant, if I do say so myself. Thank you so much for joining us today in this Food, Fun, and Friends at Flying Flag series episode, Local and Luscious. You can like us on Facebook, and you can visit us anytime at www.rvcookingshow.com. You can also watch this series on Flying Flag's website, flyingflags.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again right here on the RV Cooking Show.